Hey guys, welcome back. In the last video, we tested APIs using Postman and saw how to fetch data from an API. Today, we will build a small weather app using the OpenWeather API, and this app will fetch the current weather for a city and display it on a web page. So let's get started. So we have already built our interface by using HTML and CSS, which includes an input where the user enter the city name and button and the weather in placeholder like humidity, wind speed, and temperature. Now let's dive into how we can connect our app with OpenWeather API and show its JSON data in our app. So let's start by writing the code to detect when the user clicks on the search button. So let me add script tag, then document dot get element by ID, and the ID will be. So here I am finding the button by using its ID, which is which is get weather. Then add event listener, which is click. Then I am adding an event listener to it. This means whenever the button is clicked, so whenever the button is clicked, the function inside this listener will be run. Now let's create a variable to get the city name that user enters in the input field. Input, input ID. It is cons city equal to document dot get element by ID. I'm using document dot get element by ID to find the input field by its ID, which is city dot value, and the value property retrieves whatever the user has typed into the input box dot trim, and the trim function is used to remove any extra spaces around the input. That time we will use trim. Now let's create a variable to store an API key and URL that we will use to fetch the weather data. So cons API key would be, and you can create an API key by logging in the OpenWeather. In the OpenWeather, you can go on your profile and click on My API keys. So here you will get your APIs. Just copy this API and paste in API variable. And second one is URL. As I explained in the previous video about parameters, if you want to add something extra or apply any filter, you can add them after Q. For example, If I change the city from Gujarat to Mumbai in the URL, Mumbai, so it will show the weather for the Mumbai only. So in this way, we dynamically take the city input instead of Mumbai. Now we want to make sure the user doesn't leave the input box empty. If they do, we'll show an error message and stop the function from further. For that, if the city variable, if the city variable is empty or null, then we'll show an alert box with the message alert with the message please enter a city, and the return statement stop the function right here only. Now to fetch the weather data from an API, we use the fetch function. Fetch, we will fetch this URL. So we will call this variable and dot, then response equal. This will process the API response. Then if the API response is null, oh sorry, if the response is not okay, then we'll show a error through new error, that would be city not found. And if everything is fine, we can convert the response into JSON format using response.json. Once we get the weather data from an API, we'll update our application UI. So first we will take elements of our applications by document dot get element by ID. ID will be uh, to show the temperature. We'll take temperature as it is and paste dot text content. This means the text content that is inside it. Then we can check the API JSON response. The temperature data is in the temp under the main. So we'll update this in our code equal to dollar data dot main dot temp The degree Celsius. So like this only, we will add all the elements of our app. So now let's test it and see it's working or not. We'll enter Gujarat and click on. Look, finally it's working successfully. Gujarat. And that's it for this video. We have successfully built a functional weather app by using JavaScript, and today we learn about how to add event listener to handle user input and build a dynamic API URL with parameters like city and API key, fetch the data from the weather API, and updated the app UI dynamically with temperature, humidity, wind speed, and weather conditions. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to Ikra Technology. Thank you for watching and see you in next video.